Okay, so when you think of Adidas or Puma, what comes to mind? Iconic sneakers, right? Legendary athletes? Well, the real story behind them, it's a whole lot darker. We're talking about family, betrayal, and a feud so bitter it literally split a town right down the middle.
Yeah, Adidas and Puma, two absolute giants in the sportswear world. But here's the crazy part. They weren't always rivals. Nope. They actually started as one company, founded by two brothers, Adolf and Rudolf Dassler. And their split? Well, it kicked off one of the most intense and important family feuds of the entire 20th century. See, this isn't just some simple business squabble. The roots of the story go way back, deep into the chaos of post-World War I Germany, and yeah, the rise of the Third Reich. It's a part of their history that, let's be honest, both brands would probably rather we all just forget.
All right, before we really dive into all that, let's have a little fun. We're gonna play a quick game, 2 truths, 1 lie. I'm gonna give you 3 statements. 2 of them are totally true. 1 is a flat out lie. Your job is to try and figure out which one is the fake as we go through the story. Don't worry, we'll circle back and reveal the answer at the very end.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in a small German town in the 1920s, and things are, well, they're a mess. The economy has completely collapsed. We're talking hyperinflation so wild that a single loaf of bread costs something like 200 billion Deutschmarks. I mean, what a crazy time to even think about starting a business, right? But that's exactly what the Dassler brothers did. And they did it right in their mom's laundry room. And you know what? For a while, it was the perfect team up. You had Adi, who was the quiet, almost obsessive product genius. The tinkerer. This guy was messing with everything. New spikes, lighter materials, even wild stuff like shark skin. And then you had his older brother, Rudy. He was the total opposite, a super ambitious, outgoing salesman who knew exactly how to make the business grow. Together, man, they were a force to be reckoned with.
So they officially founded the Dassler Brothers Shoe Factory, and they got a reputation fast, all because they were innovators. They were some of the very first to put spikes on track shoes and studs on football boots. And athletes, well, they absolutely loved them. But their real big break, that came in 1936 at the infamous Berlin Olympics, hosted by Hitler himself.
Now listen to this, because what Adi did next was just incredibly gutsy. He literally snuck into the Olympic Village, tracked down the American superstar athlete Jesse Owens, and personally pitched him his spiked shoes. And get this, Owens was so blown away, he wore them. He went on to win 4 gold medals. This was, you can imagine, a massive embarrassment for Hitler. But for the Dassler brothers, it was a PR jackpot. Just like that, their shoes were famous all over the world.
But this is where the success story starts to take a really, really dark turn. Because World War II was just around the corner, and the brothers' own political choices, they were about to plant the seeds of a hatred that would tear their family and their business apart forever.
So let's just be super clear about something. The brands don't exactly advertise today. Both brothers joined the Nazi Party, and they did it early, back in 1933, and they were enthusiastic about it. During the war, their factory even switched over to producing military gear and boots for the German army.
Okay, so during the war, things get really personal. Rudolf, the older brother, gets sent to the front lines, but Adi, the product guy, is considered essential to the factory, so he gets to go home after only about 6 months. Rudolf ends up serving for years and is even captured by the Allies, and he just becomes consumed with this deep paranoia, totally convinced that his own brother Adi was scheming with the Nazis to keep him away from the business. The trust between them, it was just gone. So it's no surprise that after the war in 1946, that was it. The split was official. The brothers literally divided up everything, the company's assets, the employees, the whole shebang. They would never, ever speak to each other again. From that day forward, they were bitter enemies.
And this rivalry, it wasn't just between them. It infected their entire hometown, splitting it right down the middle. I'm not kidding. There were Adidas bakeries and Puma bars. Whole families were divided. The town even got a nickname, the town of bent necks. Why? Because before anyone would talk to you, they'd look down at your shoes to see which side you were on. It was that intense.
And of course, this is the exact moment the 2 iconic brands we know today were born. Adolf, whose nickname was Adi, just combined that with the start of his last name, Dassler, to create Adidas, and he added that 3rd stripe to his logo. Rudolf, on the other hand, he first tried the same thing with Ruda, but that didn't stick. He eventually landed on the much more athletic and powerful name, Puma. So what happened next? Just all-out war. Seriously. The brothers' personal, raw hatred for each other fueled this incredible arms race to sign athletes. And in doing so, they basically invented the entire playbook for modern sports marketing. You have to understand, they weren't just trying to grow their own companies, they were actively trying to destroy each other. And you can see the escalation, right? First, it was just giving shoes away for free. Then it turned into paying top athletes to wear your brand exclusively. From there, it got even more sophisticated. They started engineering these viral moments for television. And eventually, it led to these massive, groundbreaking revenue-sharing deals. It's wild to think about, but it turns out that pure spite can be a pretty powerful engine for innovation. The main battlefield for this war? The Football World Cup. In 1954, Adidas landed a huge blow. They outfitted the German national team with these revolutionary boots that had adjustable studs. And guess what? Germany won the World Cup. A huge win for Adi. But then, in 1970, it was Puma's turn to strike back, and they did it in a massive way. So the brothers supposedly had this unspoken rule, this Pelé Pact, not to go after the world's greatest player, Pelé. They wanted to avoid a crazy bidding war. But Rudolph's son, Armin, he didn't care. He broke the pact. Puma paid Pelé a mind-blowing $125,000 for a 4-year deal. And then, in a stroke of marketing genius, they had him ask the referee to stop the World Cup quarterfinal match just so he could bend down and tie his Puma shoes, with a global TV audience watching his every move. Oh yeah, game on. But this battle wasn't just fought on the sports field. As we move into the later part of the 20th century, one of these brands made a brilliant, game-changing pivot into pop culture, and that move would pretty much decide who won the war. So Adidas, led by this marketing visionary named Angelo Anastasio, started looking beyond sports. They moved into entertainment. They gave a bunch of free gear to Sylvester Stallone for the Rocky movies. They paid attention and noticed that the early b-boys and breakdancers loved their tracksuits. And then came the killer move. They signed the hip-hop group Run DMC to a $1 million deal, the first ever for a non-athlete music group. That led directly to the hit song by Adidas and cemented the Three Stripes as a true cultural icon. Meanwhile, Puma just kind of stuck to sports, and they got left in the dust. All right, so that brings us all the way back to that little game we started with, 2 truths and a lie. Have you been keeping track? Did you figure out which one was the fake? Okay, drum roll please. The lie was number 3. Sylvester Stallone was never paid a single penny by Adidas for wearing their gear in Rocky. It ended up being one of the most successful product placements in history, and it was completely free for them. Which means, yep, Michael Jordan really did call himself an Adidas nut, and Pelé absolutely got paid to tie his shoes in the middle of the World Cup. So, after all that, who actually won the war? Well, if you look at it commercially, the answer's pretty clear. Now, both companies have definitely had their ups and downs over the years, but Adidas is still this massively profitable giant. Puma, on the other hand, has really struggled, even posting huge losses at times. In the end, Adi's company came out on top. And what about Adi and Rudy, the brothers themselves? Well, they both died back in the 1970s, and they never, ever made up. They never reconciled. Today, they're buried in the very same cemetery in their hometown, but at opposite ends, as far away from each other as you can possibly get, even in death. It's just such an incredible story when you think about it, how a truly toxic family feud, one that was born from the dark history of Nazi Germany, somehow ended up inventing the entire billion-dollar industry of sports marketing that we know today. And it really leaves you with one final question to chew on. Can a bitter, destructive rivalry actually be the greatest engine for innovation?